but I think we can hear you. Oh, it started. Recording started.
Is Trudy still on with us?
Yeah.
I'm still here.
Oh, okay. Now you don't have to you can record it without transcribing it if you want, if that transcription's bothering you.
No, it's not.
Okay. All right. So I don't know how much y'all talked before I got on. I'm gonna if am I still frozen for y'all?
You're not.
No.
You're back. Full
Okay.
capacity.
So Trudy, you want to give Dr. Mitchell a little update about you, Trudy, and your process, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So I'm going to start with where we stopped, which was the title, because that's truthfully where I am. And I was saying earlier that I was telling Dr. Mitchell that I hope I will not be wasting your time today, because there isn't very much that I feel like I've accomplished since then. So I'm starting with the title of it. And this is what I have. This is the last, this is, there's several iterations of the title. So I started with urban elementary teachers' experiences, facilitating reading proficiency in high-performing Black students. You said high achieving or high performing was going to be probably not, what's the word? There were going to be some issues trying to research high achieving students, because it gave it gave a connotation of gifted students, which is not exactly what I was looking at, right?
Uh-huh.
So I switched it. Well, I had African American students in there first, and the suggestion was that African American is often used to refer to students whose parents, grandparents are from the USA, a little bit further down the line. And is that really what I wanted to look at, or did I want to look at Black students in general? So I switched it, because African American meant I would have to find out from the parents. I would have to do some research into the children's backgrounds, and I didn't think I really wanted to do that.
Yeah, I think
So
that's
I
the.
switched it,
Mm-hmm.
We had
and
an awesome conversation about that.
Yep. I think that's a good idea.
so I went to urban. The last thing I have, because there are about 4 or 5 of them, because I've been trying to just. I truthfully was stuck on this. So the last thing I came up with was urban elementary educators' experiences and perceptions, successfully facilitating reading proficiency in Black students. I can take out the word successfully if facilitating it means that they are successful. Um, then, of course, the question came up of how would I measure it? Was I going to use milestones? Was I just looking at the testing grades? And the more I thought about it, the more confused I got. And I was trying to decide. One of your questions was, what about their experiences did I want to focus on? And couldn't I couldn't come up with anything concrete. Other than that, I just wanted to find out what their experiences were. And I couldn't figure out where I needed to be specific. I don't know if
So
that makes any
so
sense to you.
yeah. So to make sure I'm on the right plane, or train or whatever. You're interested in elementary teachers in an urban setting
Yes.
who teach um, not necessarily high achieving, but you think they there was a conversation, Dr. Mitchell, about the achievement gap and
Okay.
how there are there's this um, well gap between white students and African American students, so that there's kind of a expectation, maybe unsaid expectation, that African American students are not going to score well. So if she and Trudy knows there are African American or black, that was a great conversation. I wish you'd been in on it. Students who do achieve well in certain teachers' classes. So she wanted to know what are those teachers doing that's producing this achievement that's not necessarily high, but it's on, they're doing what they could do. They're meeting their capabilities. They're not scoring low, and there's no gap there. Those kids are achieving at or above where they could achieve. Is that true, Trudy?
Yes.
Okay. So I think when we were talking about experiences, it's experiences as a teacher, and Dr. Mitchell, there was Dr. Rudo, they called her Dr. T because her last name was about this long. She was from Africa. And I acquired one of her students who had, she was talking about African American males are, they are the lowest group of students who graduate from college. Mm-hmm. African American males are the lowest. So there is a college or university in Georgia that her husband was successful. So she was interested in finding out what happened to these African American males who were successful, like what contributed to their success. So she gathered she interviewed her people, found her people for her study, interviewed them, and then Dr. T threw out 3 of the 4 of her interviewees. One was because he was gay, and that was gonna, be a confounding factor. But 2 of them was because their parents didn't come directly from Africa to America. They weren't African American. Mm-hmm. They came from the islands to America. Mm-hmm. So Dr. T thought, and Dr. T again was African, she felt like they would not have that lived experience of African American because they did not come directly from Africa over. So that's what got us on that conversation. Okay. And Trudy said that where she lived, Barbados, I believe, there's not this preoccupation with race or ethnicity. And I was wondering in our last conversation if that came to play during the civil rights movement, when we wanted to make sure that we put mechanisms in place into the system, and so that people were held to a standard of making sure we gave everybody a chance, in other words. So I was just curious as if that's when we started like tagging, making race an issue, asking race on a questionnaire or whatever. So that's kind of where we were from.
Dr. Nobles, I actually checked on that today, and the only information I could find is that they started including race on forms from the 1790 census. So it seems as though it was from way back then.
Yeah.
Now I don't know how reliable the source was that I was looking for, but that was the information I came up with. Yeah. And so I said I would check it out a little bit more and see if that is in fact what they said. 1790 they started putting it on the Census Bureau forms, and then it started being a part of the legal forms.
I could see it being on the census, but if you applied for a job, I don't know if it was necessarily
on that form too.
Like a question way back that far. But anyway, so when we were talking about experiences of these teachers who were successful, is the focus on the experiences in the classroom, um, is it their experiences or their beliefs? You know, exactly
Oh.
what were we aiming for? Was it their experiences as students? Was it something to do with efficacy? That's what I was trying to figure out when the word experiences came up. Like, what were we honing in on? Because that would impact the question protocol, kind
Mhm.
of thing. So that's where I was asking questions about about that. But so that's kind of where we are. Um, I think. Was there anything else, Trudy, that we need to share with Dr. Mitchell?
I think that was a good summary of it.
Because I told Trudy in my little neck of the woods, we're basically 80% white, 20% black. We have a little bit of Hispanic that's been a relatively new phenomenon to have a small Hispanic population. But I had never thought of it until I was working with Jasmine about African American, and so that's what I was curious. Since Trudy is going to be working in the Atlanta area, they have um, black students that are not African American students, like herself. So that's what made me. I told her we can go with African American, when we were having that conversation, but she'd have to make sure the kids were African American.
Yeah, I'm thinking to let me grab my APA manual because there might be something about it if you want me to check. Let's see. Here's my manual.
Well, we were talking about in when you register for school. Um, I'm not sure, what the option is. If you have to choose, would your only choice be African American? Um, and there be an assumption that if you're black, you're African American, because other people have not been privy to these wonderful conversations we have had. So
The choice I believe is black or African American, as in they put the two together,
yeah.
or they say I know with there's one that says for Hispanic students, Hispanic not something.
Latin, it's
Latino
Latino.
not.
That's what I
Yeah,
have to pick. I'm Latino, not Hispanic, or something like that.
something like that. So
Hmm.
so that's where and then when I started looking at I found an article. I have it pulled up here actually.
So as on APA, I don't know if you have your APA manual
I
handy.
do.
There is a paragraph on page 143 that talks about using specific terms for specific groups of people. And there's one in particular about people of African origin, and it does talk about African American versus Black. Um,
People of African origin.
It does, yes. People of African
Okay,
origin. It says some people of African ancestry prefer Black and others prefer African American.
right.
Both terms are acceptable. However, African American should not be used as an umbrella term for people of African ancestry worldwide because it obscures other ethnicities or national origins such as Nigerian, Kenyan, Jamaican, Kenyan, etc. So in these cases, Black. So yeah, it does give some guidance, and I guess it depends on your population, and I don't know how you can
Yes.
find that out really. Um, I think Black would be the correct way to go with it, just based on, the conversation and what you all have shared. And I think that sounds like the right way to go.
So if Trudy's and Trudy, you just jump in and tell me I'm talking out of turn. If I say something wrong, that's a redneck term, but I think you know what I mean. Um, I don't know. It might be elsewhere, but the impetus of the study or the interest from what I see is They're urban children who are black and or African American who are beating the odds in a sense. There's some beating the odds research out there that they, on the surface, there's an expectation that they are not going to be high achievers, and yet they are. And is that what the teacher's doing that is supporting that? Like, why is it different in this class than this class? If I got kind of the same, I'm drawing from the same population, and Trudy's the teacher over here, and her kids are achieving at or above where they're supposed to. I'm not going to say expectations, but where they are supposed to be. And in this classroom and Kathy's classroom, they are not. Then what's going on differently in this classroom than that classroom? Is that true, Trudy?
Are you asking if that's what I'm trying to look at?
Uh-huh.
Not necessarily comparing the classrooms.
You're not comparing them, but
trying to understand. Yes,
that you recognize that some teachers do better than others with
right.
African American kids, and so what's going on in those classrooms? Not
That's
to compare them to other, but just out there in the real world, you have seen that this teacher does well, this teacher does not. So that would be kind of how you would pick your teachers,
right,
in your study.
The question is, what makes the difference?
Yeah, you're right.
What in the teachers' experiences, what in their perceptions has made the difference for these children? I am not going from the point of view that teachers don't make a difference, because I know that they do, right? So, so I'm trying to understand what makes the difference for these teachers and their kids. And the problem with that is that seems really broad, and I can't figure out how to narrow it, simply because there's so many. They may have there are a lot of things that go into a child's success. Whether it is, are these teachers noticing, for example, that students who have had certain do the students' attitudes make a difference? Do the students if they were in pre-K prior to, do they are they perceiving that, yeah, that makes a difference to the kids? I mean,
but it's things that you want to,
not the
it's the
programs
things
necessarily that they're using, but like,
I'm not sure teacher experiences solely can answer that question, though, because it sounds to me like a case study where you could use different methods to explore that research question or the problem that you're looking at to investigate. But if you wanted to know, like, what are teachers doing or what factors go into the differences with this group of students that you're seeing in the classroom with these students, experiences wouldn't be the data that you need to answer that question. Experiences might help inform a perspective of what's going on and give you some insight, but based on that question alone, it sounds like you would have to do some observations to see what factors go into it. You'd have to learn about the students and those questions that you asked about, do they have, like, what kind of schooling have they had prior, pre-K, VPK type things? What did that do for them? So like other historical context about the students would be needed, and the teachers and the school.
I'm asking the wrong questions then.
Yeah. Well, it may be that you want to focus on the things that are in the teacher's control. The teacher can't control if they went to. Now, I'm just throwing this out there.
Right.
Like the teacher can't control if they went to pre-K or not. The teacher can't control if there's a two-parent household, family, or any of the other factors that by research we say it contributes to a child's success. But that's strictly up to you. I
I
understand.
remember you were saying that before, and that's where I got stuck. That's where I couldn't, like, when you say things that are in their control, it it was almost as though all the other things were not thrown out, but I have to lay them aside. And I think that that has been a part of my issue. Is just trying to figure out what do we mean by it within the teacher's control versus what they, I don't know.
Anything, any topic anybody comes up with, there's 100 ways for us to approach it, and that's why we have
Right.
to have these conversations, and so we can narrow down exactly what it is that you're trying to find out with your study. So when I say the things that are out of the teacher's control, that's things that happened prior to when those kids walked in the classroom,
Right.
or what's currently going on. Like if the dad got arrested last night, or whatever happened. But does that teacher do something? I'm going to guess. I would theorize a lot of it's going to be based on relationships. I've seen kids in different classrooms, same kid. I've observed this classroom, I've observed that classroom. This teacher has a good relationship with all of her children, and the kids would die, kill themselves trying to perform for that teacher. This teacher over here was antagonistic, and they could care less what she said. So I'm going to guess relationships would be something, and that's in the teacher's control. That if I care about the kids and I make those relationships with the kids, then that's in my control. Um, how I teach, how I decide to teach things, whatever my methods or strategies are, um, timing, when do I teach things, all of that stuff is things that the teacher has control of in the classroom. But if you want to do a case study, like Dr. Mitchell was talking about, and if you pick like, how many would she need? Would she only do one, Dr. Mitchell, one teacher, or?
Well, the case can be defined either by the location or the participants. So I think it just depends on it, like with what you're curious to learn about. Is this phenomenon with the performance gap that we were talking about? Are you thinking about at one school specifically? Are you thinking in general? Because that would depend on how we define our case. Your case could be the teachers, or your case could be the place in this
Um,
context. So are you thinking in general with the performance gap, or are you interested? And I will say, if you were to do something with a case study and this was the question that you wanted to investigate, it would require observations. You would
yes.
definitely need to do something like that, unless whatever your research question was, um, signals that experiences and perspectives of teachers would be the data that you need to answer the question. But if you're looking at identifying factors and understanding like what goes into, the success that these students are having, um, yeah, you would have to do observations for sure with that.
I just assumed I would have to do observations, period. I didn't think, even if I did interviews, I mean, I would have to do interviews, but I just figured I would have to do observations as well.
Depends on what you want to learn and what it is that you're seeking to understand. And there's so many different kinds of interviews, and they all are for specific purposes. Based on the qualitative approach that you would use, or if you're looking at mixed method study, it really just depends on what it is that you want to learn. So yeah, so far from the conversation, it sounds like you're interested in understanding the factors that go into, what's I don't want to say causing, but Like,
But factory sounds like quantitative research.
you said it does sound like
It,
qualitative.
it does, like quantitative research. And I wasn't trying to do quantitative
That's how you
research.
ask your question, you know. But if you're looking at if you're wanting to look at a classroom and a group of students on a smaller scale, qualitative would be perfect for that, because you can think about your study being exploratory. You know, you're exploring the factors rather than trying to see the um, relationship between this variable and that variable, or a causation of this variable and that variable. Like, does this lead to this? You're exploring a little bit deeper into what factors are going into why these students are successful. What's happening here, kind of question.
Dr.
So,
Mitchell, just you may know this already, but when I was doing my dissertation, it was on effective school criteria, and there was a Coleman report. It was a study commissioned by the federal Congress, the U.S. Congress, in the late '60s, and he came back. He looked quantitatively at test scores, and basically said that if you were poor or of color, or especially poor and of color, that there was basically no reason for you to go to school. Nothing. No, the school was not going to have any impact on you.
yeah.
And so that prompted the effective school criteria movement. So people who said that they knew that was not true, they went out and qualitatively looked at schools. Some of them were called 90% free reduced, 90% color, 90% on grade level or above. And so they went in other effective schools. They went out all over the country. They looked at, just like you're saying, they looked at what are the factors, what is contributing to the success of this school, of these people. And then they got back together and looked at it, and that's when they developed the first effective school criteria list. There were 5 of them, that group of 7, and so it's the same kind of concept as that of, yes, out there in the on the surface, people are saying these kids are not should not be achieving. But yes, I know that they are achieving, so I'm going to go in there and look at it and see if I can see what's going on in that classroom, or whatever you decide on, that's causing these students to be a successful. What's different in this classroom that's causing these kids? Now, this group of kids is going to be average. This same group of kids could be at any location, because they, statistically speaking, the whatever their makeup is. It's not like you have plucked all of the best kids from all over Atlanta and put them in this one teacher's classroom. It's This classroom is a typical classroom, but something special is happening there, and you're trying to find out what is happening there, and that whatever those things are would be the factors or the criteria or whatever term you want to use them. So no, just I understand the connection with quantitative when you say the word factor, because there's factor analysis and all that kind of stuff, but when the term factor here is used, it's one of those things that you're going to identify that's going on in this classroom that's apparently different than what would be going on in another classroom.
The example you used, Dr. Nobles, earlier, like, we can assume based on literature and our own experiences that relationships probably play a role in something, and that would be a good point. And so that would be a factor, is relationship. So that could be a good starting point to explore, like, okay, I think I know something about relationships. Literature says relationships and teaching and, XYZ. So that could be a good starting point for observations that you would do, and some exploratory interviews that you would do. If you were to do a case study that use ethnographic methods such as observations and informal conversations or semi-structured interviews. So a case study and an ethnographic perspective would allow you to do those things. And your case could be the class that you're looking at. That could be the bounded, like in a case study, it's important to define what bounds the case. And so it could be your class, it could be the students that you're looking at, which actually, yeah, it could be the students. So there's a lot you can work with, and that would just develop as you put together your problem statement, the purpose for your research, and develop your research question. You would be able to help, like, start narrowing down some of those specifics about your qualitative approach and like what data you would need to answer that research question once you've got it. Is that helpful at all? I hope I didn't make it more
Like, like growth mindset.
I'm processing it.
Yeah.
Growth mindset is that having that belief as a teacher that yes, you can learn, yes, that you can grow, and you don't have a fixed IQ. That that's probably, that could be one of your theories that you include. But I would guess that if a teacher is successful and the teacher, something's different going on in that classroom, I'm going to bet that teacher believes those kids, like efficacy. If the teacher believes they can teach the kids, and the teacher believes the kids can learn, and she gets the kids to believe that they can learn, because at some point in time, kids give up. If they told, you can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it, then at some point they just give up, and why should I try? So that efficacy would be a factor. That's Bandura. So there's a lot of different things that you could look at the effective school criteria, and that'll give you some basis of things to look for as well.
I couldn't find it well, okay, so
you can't find the effective school criteria?
The truth is, I looked for it today. Okay. I did not look for it. I haven't been looking for it consistently, but today when I put it in the system trying to look for it, I got stuff about high school. I was clearly not putting in enough terms. I got about principles, effective principles, not the term effective school criteria. I tried adding IDEA to it. I did not get anything that was there for that. It was like when I tried to put in 1990 schools, I got a lot of information about HIV. I'm not sure why, but that's what came up.
One of our librarians might be able to pull some information at the Odom Library. I'll try to see if I can find something too. Oh, Dr. Nobles has got something.
So.
Oh, there we go.
Sorry, what did you just in the chat?
Yeah, Dr. Nobles put in a link to an article.
Larry Lazott, Lezotte, he's one of the main guys.
Dr. Stewart to School Effectiveness, a systematic literature review. Is this the same one?
Did you send it twice? I just thought maybe I did. I thought I put in two different ones, but I'll take one out. But like Dr. Mitchell said, you can get with a librarian, do a chat, and
I've done that before. You just have to have really specific questions, I've found.
search terms.
search terms. Yeah.
It sometimes it's good to find dissertations, and they will give you some. Um,
This is a really good systematic literature review that you found.
You mean factors contributing to school effectiveness? That one?
It's a great. I mean, I'm just skimming it right now, but it actually has some really good discussion points, and I'm wondering if you could even dig into some of these resources that were in the literature review. Um, but it looks like it could offer some really good potential for thinking about how you want to conceptualize your research problems.
Research. Okay.
Yeah, and potentially a framework that you would want to explore a little bit more.
I think the problem for me, um, I wish we had not had to do, and I think they've taken it out since then, but I wish we had not had to do a proposal prior to actually coming on board with our dissertation process, because I think it has skewed the way I am seeing things. Um, a part of I'm having a hard time letting go of what I did originally for that proposal. And I'm finding that I need to let go of it and start over. And so that's where I am right now.
Yeah, was it
Because
like a proposal you did for a certain class?
it
Just to,
was
like
our
walk.
culminating class. It was for the before we started
Oh, I
the before we became ABD, we had to do we had to do a proposal.
see. Mm-hmm.
And so I I I am aware that I've got to release that and just start over. But it feels like I did so much work for that. I don't really want to let it go, but I know I'm going to have to and
Yeah.
just start again because I'll just give you in that one I was looking at a lot of factors, for lack of a better word, that could have influenced the children's growth, which is truthfully where I started with the with what I wanted to do. So I was looking at parental input. I was looking at um, the curriculum that they were using. Was it a phonics based thing? I was looking at the children's sense of their self efficacy. I was looking at teachers uh, the way teachers interacted with the kids. So I had all of these different things that I was including in there, and I am probably in doing that. I was trying to bite off more than I probably could chew for any one dissertation, any one
Yeah, that's and that's
project. So,
common. That happens a lot.
hmm?
It's easy to try to do too much in one study.
Right. And the reason a part of that is because of where my heart is. I've watched children struggle too much with reading and I can't figure out why they are. So for me it's personal, right? So if I just zone in on the relationships with the children, the teachers' relationships to the kids, I feel like I am missing other parts of the
Well,
children's success, which
uh,
which I can't do it all. So I
you
need
don't have
to.
to exclusively focus on relationships.
I'm
The
sorry.
You wouldn't have to exclusively focus on relationships. If you
mhm.
went to it with an exploratory question of what are the factors, then that
Okay.
leaves it open for you to discover and uncover anything potentially that you see in the interactions of the students and the teacher, and the interactions of the students with each other, the interactions of the students with the materials. So it really does, that exploratory perspective really does leave it open to exploring and uncovering what other factors could be involved in um, you never know. There could be peer learning happening that we are overlooking. You could have, you might discover something about the way students interact with materials that you haven't noticed before. And so that's kind of the beauty of the question, is that you get to go in with a clean, open mind of what's happening here. What is leading to these students and their success when the odds and the documents and everything else have said that they're not supposed to be successful. Like, what's happening here? So opening the floor with that exploratory perspective allows you to go in and explore and see what other things are potential factors, without having to get fixed on one thing.
Okay. Which is
Oh,
funny
here's
because
one that's effective
but
schools for the urban poor.
what's that? Oh,
I found an article that says effective schools for the urban poor.
what are you putting in to find these articles? What exactly are you putting in
Well, I
in
started
the
out with
search?
effective schools,
Uh,
um, movement and effective school criteria, and then I knew Larry Lazat was in there, and then the Ronald Edmonds that I put in, and then I put him in there, and correlates of effective schools they're called as well. Um, the thing, Trudy, to keep in mind is this is a dissertation. So we just want to see if you can conceive, plan, and execute, and it makes logical sense. You're
okay.
not going to save the world with one dissertation.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do qualitative work, I mean, if you do quantitative work and it's big enough, you have a big enough sample, like if you sampled the United States and whatever it was, you can make some fairly bold statements with that. But if I go and I observe in a qualitative study, and I go and observe in one classroom or two or three classrooms, but it's like this is what I have found out in these classrooms. It's adding to the body of knowledge, and people
Okay.
can draw off of your work, but it's not going to change the world.
Okay.
Now, these people, I said these effective school people, they went to several schools all over the United States. There was some. They went to some in the United Kingdom. The research went on and on and on. It wasn't like one. They went to one school and got a few criteria and said, yeah, that's it.
Right.
So just keep that in mind. But your goal is to conceive, plan, and execute a study and write it up at a certain level that is expected for doctoral students, and get that done and get that published. And you're adding to the body of knowledge, like I say, but it's not going to be the only study on the face of the earth about this particular topic,
Okay.
and that's take that burden off of your soul, that it's
Can you say
not
that again? My goal is to conceive.
conceive. That's what we're trying to do right now, conceive.
Yes.
Once we conceive it, here's what we want to study. When we narrow that down, then we're going to plan how to do that study. Conceive it, we're going to plan it, and then we're going to execute that plan. Like I always
Okay.
have students in 9800 say, what if I get the wrong answer? There is no wrong answer. It
Mm-hmm.
is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You get what you get,
Mm-hmm.
and then you write it up. And when you get what you get, you say, hey, I was expecting it to be this because of the literature, because the literature said this, and that's where I thought we were going, but we went to this place, and here's why I think that. So that's our goal here, because we want you to graduate
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
at some point in time.
Well, keep it
Um,
simple.
My sister is now at Valdosta doing her a master's program at Valdosta with she's doing oh dear,
oh
nurse
yeah,
practitioner,
that program
and
exploded.
she's
I'll
given
tell you.
me Usually, it's usually the other way around, where I am the studious one and she is the one who kind of doesn't quite get to the finish line.
Yeah.
And the way she's working now, our roles are reversed. She is so focused, and I'm focused, but not enough to. I'm getting there now from having talked to you all, but I I just couldn't seem to pull it all together. Because
It takes time, and
yeah,
That's
but
the
too
hard
much
part.
time has gone by already.
this
It
is the
just feels like too much has gone by, and I don't want to not. I have got to graduate. That's my goal.
Yeah, so if
But
you do a study that's as big as you're thinking about, we probably won't graduate. That's
Mhm.
okay,
why Dr. Mitchell and I are helping you narrow this sucker
narrow
down
it
so
down.
that we get graduated. That last link I put in is about a 90-90-90 school, a case study about a 90-90-90 school.
Oh, and that's great to see another case study as an example. Um,
Mm.
I don't know if it's a qualitative case study, but that could be a good
Oh,
example to look at.
I haven't read it, I just found it.
Mhm.
let's
So
see.
that would give you that stuff in those in the chat will give you some help as far as when you get ready to
Thank you so much.
meet with the librarian. But what we've got to get to, our first goal here is for you to make a decision on exactly what it is that you're interested in finding out. And
Yes.
then Dr. Mitchell and I can help you plan out that, where we're going from here. But we've thrown out lots of ideas and that might be confusing. And like you say, you did all that work previously, but
It's not really confusing. It's just trying to absorb the information that you've given, and I appreciate like hearing about the idea of doing an exploratory study. Um, is fascinating for me because it I think it aligns a bit more. But I remember when I first started doing this, a part of my topic was what makes the difference when we first started doing this. But then I
that
was
would
under
be
the
great to
impression
be in
that
your
I could
title.
not put that I couldn't put that in a question. I mean, in a proposal. So
Well, when you go through the process, this, I'm not, super experienced with this, but what I have picked up is our students are going through these different courses, and each teacher, each professor has different ideas, and
yes,
so your thing morphs and grows and gets out of hand, kind of thing. So Dr. Mitchell and I want to help you
just narrow
bring
it
it
down.
back down into
Yes.
something that's manageable,
Okay.
um, because we want you to get through. We don't want to put you out there in a position of trying to do something that's not manageable.
It's not feasible. Okay. All right. And I do appreciate that.
So, like I
Right.
said, there's lots of different ways we can go, but you're kind of sitting in the driver's seat, and we want to help you do what you are interested. We don't want to push you to do something we would be interested in. We want you to decide what exactly it is that you're interested in, and when you can um, verbalize that to us, and we can help you get that plan together.
I was trying to find uh hold on. A study reading. I was trying to find I'll look for it later, but I was trying to find a um the way that I had the topic phrased originally.
Oh, uh huh.
And like I was saying just now, it had it did have that part of it did have that question tacked on the end of it, what makes the difference? And I can't put my eyes on it right this second. But can you add that to can that be a question that you ask in your title?
I don't see why not. So I'm gonna put
I,
Douglas Reeves.
I saw Dr. Mitchell's mouth quirked.
Oh no, I was just listening. I think I just would need more information, but I don't see
Okay.
why you couldn't put that in the title of
I,
your
I,
paper.
hmm?
I don't see why you couldn't put that in the title of your paper.
I'm gonna find what I had originally because I moved away from my original question. Um, let me see if I can find it. Mm.
As you're looking, do you have an idea of um, do you have an idea of a research question that you would be interested in, or have you played around with trying to write like a problem statement and a research question?
The problem statement that I had was based on the very broad picture of let me pull it so I can read it for you. I guess I should have shared what I had sent to Dr. Um, Nobles with
Oh,
you.
if you've got anything you
But
can send my way, go for it. And I'm jumping on board for the first time here, so I'll learn a lot of what you're doing and what you've been looking at and working on too. So
I'm sorry, can you say that again? If you're saying just send it to you?
sure. I mean, if you have something written up, if you've got anything, I'd
Do
love to
you
read.
have something other
The
than
only thing I have
the
The only thing I
perspective?
have right now is what I originally sent to Dr. Nobles that I got some
I can
feedback on, and that
forward.
was my original proposal. And so with that, I'm saying that I know I need to do a lot of reworking of it. So I
Okay.
am
I'm
not
sending you that.
Okay. Awesome.
oh,
Trudy, what made you decide to go in a different direction from your prospectus that you were working on?
um, some of it was at one point I had teachers and students
Mm-hmm.
perspectives, and then I had about their experiences. A part of what I changed is somebody said, one of my professors said, nobody's interested in perspectives, they're interested in their perceptions. So I had to figure out the difference between those two. Then when I was talking to Dr. Nobles, I realized that trying to do stuff with kids and involving them in the research, it wasn't just Dr. Nobles actually, it was with Dr. Feaster.
Easter. Uh-huh.
Yes. And so having to work with kids was going to really not be, it wasn't the labor intensive, it was going to be like all the permissions you had to get from the IRB and that kind of stuff. I wasn't sure I wanted to go through that. And so
Yeah.
I started focusing more on the teachers themselves, which for me was what I needed to look at, because especially as an elementary school teacher. Um, and then I guess that was it mostly. The logistics of trying to work with kids in research was just going to be a lot more than I have the I thought it would have the fortitude for. So I decided to switch. But I knew that by switching, I was also going to get some of my questions answered with
Yeah.
just teachers, because you can observe what children are doing. Um, if I sit in classrooms and observe, you don't have to have the same kind of permissions
You
as,
probably actually
or
do.
do you?
You
Hmm?
probably do because it's still involving students.
Oh,
Even though the interactions may look different, it's still research that involves students. So you would certainly need to go through an approval process with the school and the district
yeah,
and, and BSU as well, you know?
yeah.
So it would be, I mean,
But it wouldn't be the same as trying to do interviews with them, would it?
it would be a different protocol that you would be working through for approval. But like, I don't know the details. We'd have to wait and see what the details are of your study and what you want to learn and find out. Thanks, Dr. Nibbles, for forwarding.
Trudy, I found some emails that you and I had back and forth.
Yes.
From the get-go, and I sent her the original prospectus, and then some emails where you and I had some conversations.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that you'd like to talk about, Trudy? Or questions that you have, or anxieties that you have? Or...
I'm trying to shed the anxieties, but
sometimes this part of the process
life
gets
is intervening a lot more in this process than I would like. When I had to do my coursework, I did my coursework. Right? Well, I actually had to request a couple of extensions because of family things that were going on. But overall, I did the coursework. Now I'm on my own and I'm doing this stuff. And I just need to figure out how to. I think it's a bit more than that, though. It's not just figuring out how to do it. It's just figuring out what needs to be done.
What exactly
and that's the truth. What exactly is I want to do.
Yeah.
And where I thought I knew, and I really am just still figuring it out. But I have a clearer picture now, I think. I'll spend some time.
This part of the process gets frustrating at times, but if you don't, in my opinion, if we don't go through this bit of frustration right now and you get down the line, a year from now and stuff is not falling into places because we didn't spend enough time doing this kind of stuff.
Well, I hope that this will be, I'm like at the end of the frustration part and I can start sitting down and really zoning in on it.
Break it to you, the frustration will not go away. it will switch through the whole project, but somehow you just learn to lean into it. Okay. You just accept it and you lean into it. And I just want to share with you, I actually, when I was a student, I had a prospectus and a proposal for a study that I worked on conceptualizing and planning for 8 months. And right before my proposal defense to actually do the dissertation research, I changed my mind. And I decided to do something totally different. And that was hard. That was really, really, really hard. And it took some time, but I ended up doing something that I really loved. So it happens, it definitely happens. And you go back to the drawing board and you just start at square one and ask, what's the purpose of my study? What's the problem I'm investigating? What's my research question? And then we can figure out, ways that you can look at it through different lenses with different theoretical or conceptual frameworks and different ways to explore it. There's so many different options and there's lots of good choices. So this is the hard part. Is just putting your finger on writing a statement that is the research problem and articulating what the problem is and why it needs to be studied and why it matters, and then coming up with the research question. That's the hardest part. It truly, truly is. But once that's in place, everything else falls into place. Your research question is going to guide the study design. Absolutely. So this is truly the hardest part. I know I keep saying that, but I just, I know it's hard, so this is, if you can get through this, and you can, because you've got, a team and faculty that know that you can do this. You've come this far. Just get that research question written down and we'll go through stuff. But once you got that problem, that research question written down, then the rest of it will come together. Absolutely.
Okay. I appreciate you both. I do.
Well, we, like Dr. Mitchell said, we want you to be successful.
I almost called and canceled and said I don't want to waste your time. That's how I started the conversation with Dr. Mitchell, because I was just feeling like I don't have anything to give you and to present right now, and I was hoping I would have at least the first part of chapter one then by now, So but I do appreciate the.
You were not real clear in your heart about exactly where you were going, and couldn't find anything out there to look at. So all of this that we're doing, this work that we're doing, this conversation that we're having, and we're glad to have it with you, is to help you hone in on it. So once you get all this stuff clear, it'll flow. You'll be able to sit down and write. Now, it's not going to be 100% correct the first time you write it, but we're here to help with that as well. So,
Yeah,
but
don't worry
all
about
of this conversation that you've had, it's going to help you in your writing.
Thank you. I really do appreciate that. So I'll get to it. Um, I think that's about it. I will. What do you want me to send to you?
I would like to see, like Dr. Mitchell said, now, have I sent you the latest, the newest dissertation template?
You sent me one.
Okay. We hadn't changed it. It doesn't change that rapidly. Like the last template was on APA 5. We never did get one out for 6, so now it's on APA 7.
And
So
now you're
that
at
will give
7.
you that. If you'll look at that, that'll give you some ideas. But like we need, like, what's your purpose? What's the problem? What's your purpose? What's the significance? What are your research questions? Just kind of jot down those piecey parts. And let's get clear with that. What do you think, Dr. Mitchell?
I think that sounds great. Yeah, I even just a few sentences for each one, just straightforward, boom, boom, boom. This is the problem in one sentence. This is the purpose in one sentence. Like if you can be clear on those things, and just give it a shot with writing a research question. And we're not looking for perfection, but try on a couple different thoughts of research questions that and we can explore and see which ones you'd like to look into. So
Okay.
that sounds great.
Yeah, don't worry about having some elegant introduction and all that. We'll expect that a little bit later. But if we can right now come to, if you can come to a point where you say, yes, this is the problem I want to get answered. This is why it's important. Here's some potential research question or questions that would answer my problem. All of that's got to be lined up. We want to make sure that's lined up, and once we can get that kind of nailed down, then you can start working on chapter 1.
Okay.
And then I would suggest you, once we get chapter 1 nailed down, first of all, just give us those, like Dr. Mitchell just said, boom, boom, boom. And then once we get that nailed down, you start working on chapter 1. When we get chapter 1 kind of close to, it looks like it's firming up, then y'all can work on chapter 3. And that would be your methodology. Like how exactly do we think that we're going to do the study? Which road are we going down? Is it a case study? Is it narrative of experiences? What is it, kind of thing? All the while, when you start working on it and you send us stuff, depending on what's going on in our lives, we might answer you quickly and we might not answer you quickly. But you can always be working on your chapter 2.
Just the
Pulling your
literature.
lit.
Lit review. Okay.
But right now, our first goal is to get it clear on what's the problem, what's the significance, what are the potential research um, questions, questions, that kind of stuff. Like an elevator talk.
Mm-hmm.
Like an elevator talk. Have you heard of those? Like,
No.
okay, that is just that means to be succinct with. Like if you were in an elevator with someone, you would explain to them by the time you went from the top of the building to the bottom of the to the bottom floor, wherever you're getting out. This is what my study is. So
Okay.
it's real short and sweet, but it's succinct, and that's what we want to look at first.
All
Yeah.
right.
The next meeting, you're going to meet Dr. Nobles at the elevator. And once you get there, you're going to tell her, this is my problem, this is my purpose, this is significance, and this is my research question. And then the door will
Okay.
open. Your elevator pitch. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Great. That makes sense.
Yeah. Excellent.
All right. Thank you so much, ladies. And in the meanwhile, I'll also read the articles that are here that you sent to me.
Okay.
Not there.
Can I access them in the recording?
Yes. Since it's recorded, you'll have access to it. I believe it shows up in the chat, and if you don't want to lose it, make sure you download it. I think since you started,
How do you download it?
I think since you started, you can go under those little three dots where it says more.
I didn't start it. You started the recording.
Oh, I thought you did.
No, man.
Yeah, the chat will be there too for you to pull up these references after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, let me go in there then. There's somewhere where you can tell it not to, I'll figure it out. There's somewhere you can tell it, I think it defaults to 90 days or something like that. I can extend that, but if you go in and you can download it.
Okay.
Okay, did you have another question?
No.
Okay.
I think I'm good for now. I've got a lot to think about, and I really appreciate the conversation we had just now. Um, it's not too heavy, but it is a lot.
Well,
So I
if there
have to
wasn't
go
a
back.
lot,
I will certainly be going back and reviewing the video, the recording, and listening again to it. But there's a lot that you said, and like the word exploratory study is stuck in my head.
Good.
Having to start over, and it's okay, is stuck in my head.
Good.
And be succinct with the first set of stuff that I have to do. That I have to give you the problem, the research question, the purpose. I have to do all of those and make sure I get them to you.
okay. If it was easy to do, everybody would have a doctorate degree.
True. That's so true.
Mhm.
That's so true.
Okay, well, you work on this stuff. Now, I just Google that stuff over there, and it may or may not be current, but it will give you look in the references of the articles or whatever, and it'll give you clues about some other things you can look for when you make your appointment
You said you
with the
Googled
library.
it, meaning you went through Google or you went through Odin?
No, I just pulled up Google here and put in those search terms, and that's where I found these articles over here. Some
I
of
think
it's because
maybe
I
I need a
knew
refresher
something
on how
about
to
it. But
search in Odin, because the stuff that you just put up on there, it was not coming up. No, again, 1990 came up with HIV.
well, see those hash marks in between it, the forward slash.
Yes.
That might be critical. I don't know. But
Okay.
like if you know when you're talking to the librarian, tell them what you mean, and they'll know how to put some terms in there to
All
get
right.
what it
I will
is
do
that you're
that.
looking for.
I'll make an appointment with them as well.
Okay.
But in the meanwhile, I have a lot of work to do, which I will get done.
Okay.
So thank you so
You got any?
much.
Of course,
You got anything else, Dr. Mitchell?
I don't. I don't. I'm happy to work with both of you, and just let us know when you're ready to meet again.
I will.
Well, I will see you tomorrow at the department meeting, Dr. Mitchell.
That's good.
All right. Well, have a good
Have a
evening.
wonderful evening.
Nice to
You
meet you.
both. It's good meeting you, Dr. Mitchell. I'm looking forward to working with you.
Same. All right. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.